Kerr's bold move and a cruel ending. Golden State Warriors experiment with new strategy against the Nuggets. For those who follow the Golden State Warriors closely, the first quarter usually holds few surprises. Rotations follow predictable patterns. Steve Kerr keeps the starters on until around the 6-minute mark, barring injuries or foul trouble. However, last night's game against the Denver Nuggets brought an intriguing change at the 7:24 mark of the first quarter.
Who left the court?
None other than Stephen Curry, the team's maestro. Subbing Curry out so early is highly unusual. By default, he plays the first 8 minutes of the first and third quarters before resting. This carefully designed schedule by Kerr keeps the 36-year-old star on the court for about 30 to 32 minutes per game, preserving his legs for the grueling season. But with a 4-game losing streak and Draymond Green's absence, Kerr decided to take a bold approach. The reasoning behind this change became clear as the game unfolded. The Warriors needed to adjust to address their weaknesses, exploit the Nuggets' vulnerabilities, and compensate for Green's absence, one of their primary playmakers and defenders. Without Green, Curry had to shoulder even more responsibility in crucial moments. The harsh reality without Curry. When Curry isn't on the court, the Warriors' offense is, frankly, a disaster. Before the game against the Nuggets, the team was scoring just 104.6 points per 100 possessions without Curry, ranking 29th in the NBA. In half-court situations, that number plummets to 89.6 points, ranking 28th. In simpler terms, scoring becomes almost impossible without Curry. Kerr's new rotation was an attempt to mitigate this vulnerability.
The idea?
Ensure Curry was on the court to start the second and fourth quarters when the Nuggets reserves, without Nikola Jokic, took over. It was a golden opportunity to attack the opponent's weak spot, exposing the Nuggets' weakness. Without Jokic, the Nuggets' offense is even worse than the Warriors without Curry. The team scores just 97.2 points per 100 possessions during those stretches. In half-court play, it drops further to 81.0 points. Kerr recognized this and made his move: deploy Curry against Denver's second unit with a clear intent to dominate. And it worked. During the 8 minutes Jokic rested, the Warriors outscored the Nuggets by 19 points. Curry was everywhere, exploiting Denver's defensive lapses to create opportunities for himself and his teammates. Jonathan Kuminga, stepping into the starting lineup in Green's absence, took full advantage. He scored 19 points, many of them stemming from the attention Curry commanded the moment he crossed midcourt. The tragedy of the final 2 minutes. But the game's ending was cruel to the Warriors. After a tough jumper by Curry over Jamal Murray gave Golden State a 6-point lead with 2:32 remaining, the offense stalled. The Warriors didn't score another point. Meanwhile, the Nuggets closed the game on a 10-0 run, led by a dominant Jokic. Jokic, by the way, was unstoppable. He finished with 38 points, 10 rebounds, and 8 assists in 40 minutes. The numbers tell the story. During the 8 minutes without him, the Warriors ran over the Nuggets. In the 40 minutes he played, Denver outscored Golden State by 23 points. Critical decisions and key plays. One moment that epitomized the Warriors' collapse was a play where Jonathan Kuminga appeared to have a clear path to a dunk. As always, Curry found the young forward in motion, but Jamal Murray had other plans. He swooped in with a perfectly timed strip, denying Kuminga an easy bucket. It was a brilliant effort by the Nuggets guard, but a heartbreaking moment for the Warriors. What does this mean for the future? Kerr's decision to tweak rotations shows an attempt to address chronic issues. Despite the disappointing result, it's hard to ignore that the Warriors were competitive for most of the game, something they lacked in recent losses. The question now is, will this rotation become the new norm, or was it just a one-off experiment against a specific opponent? Either way, the path forward for the Warriors is clear. They must maximize Curry's minutes, capitalize on moments when opposing stars like Jokic are off the floor, and most importantly, find ways to score consistently in crunch time. The season is long, but games like this serve as painful reminders of how thin the line is between victory and defeat. We, the Golden State faithful, know this team has the heart of a champion. Now, it's up to Kerr and company to adjust the pieces so these tough losses turn into lessons and fuel for a playoff run. And with Curry leading the charge, never underestimate the power of an epic comeback. As we reflect on Kerr's decision to take Curry out early, it's clear that the coach was willing to sacrifice some of his star players' traditional rhythm to exploit an opportunity against a specific matchup. Kerr's usual strategy revolves around minimizing the wear and tear on Curry's body, particularly during back-to-backs and long stretches of the season. But with the Warriors underperforming and a losing streak hanging over them, he clearly felt that a tactical change was necessary to shift the momentum. In the early part of the game, it was evident that Kerr had a keen understanding of the Nuggets' vulnerabilities. Denver's bench, as much as it has its strong points, often lacks the firepower to compete with teams that have a superstar like Curry. With Jokic out, the Nuggets' offense falters, and Kerr knew this was the Warriors' best chance to capitalize. The moves made in those early rotations allowed Golden State to gain some momentum, but as the game wore on, it became clear that talent alone couldn't carry them across the finish line. The absence of Draymond Green was a major factor in the game's outcome. Green's defensive prowess, leadership, and playmaking abilities were sorely missed, especially as the Warriors struggled to contain Jokic and generate offense without him. While Curry did his best to keep the team afloat, the lack of Green's defensive intensity allowed Denver to exploit Golden State's weaknesses on both ends of the floor. This, in turn, made Kerr's decision even riskier. Without Green's presence, it was even more essential that Curry's rest periods were strategically used. Jonathan Kuminga stepped up in Green's absence, making a strong case for himself as a potential long-term fixture in the Warriors' rotation. His 19-point performance was a much-needed contribution, and it highlighted his growth as a player. His ability to capitalize on Curry's gravity was crucial in keeping the game competitive during stretches when the Warriors needed a scoring spark. However, while Kuminga's development is promising, the team still lacks the defensive reliability and veteran leadership that Green brings to the table, and it was evident when the Nuggets surged in the final minutes. The key to the Warriors' struggles, however, wasn't just a lack of Green's presence or a miscalculation in rotations. It was their failure to execute down the stretch. After Curry's clutch jumper that gave them a 6-point lead, the Warriors' offense stagnated. Part of this was due to Denver's defense, but another part was the Warriors' inability to make smart, quick decisions in crunch time. The lack of ball movement and off-ball screens that usually free up Curry was non-existent, and the Nuggets capitalized, particularly through key defensive plays like Murray's strip on Kuminga. Kerr's challenge in these moments is balancing offensive creativity with defensive cohesion. With Curry on the floor, the Warriors are capable of explosive scoring runs, but defensively they often struggle to stop a powerful force like Jokic. In such instances, Kerr has to rely on his bench and role players to step up, but that's been a point of frustration for the Warriors in recent games. While the team has high potential, its inability to play consistent defense or close games in crunch time has led to numerous heartbreaks. Looking ahead, Kerr has some tough decisions to make in terms of how to best utilize his roster. The Warriors' struggles this season highlight a broader issue with depth and consistency. Curry can only do so much, and while players like Kuminga and Moses Moody have shown promise, they aren't ready to be the primary contributors needed to carry the team through difficult games. Kerr will need to experiment further with rotations, especially in light of Green's ongoing injury concerns, to find a better balance between offense and defense. Another layer to the Warriors' current struggles is the ongoing adjustment to their style of play. The team, which once thrived on fast-paced ball movement and shooting from all over the court, has struggled to replicate that flow this season. With injuries, foul trouble, and inconsistent performances, they've become far too dependent on Curry to create everything offensively. While that's a luxury most teams would envy, it's also a double-edged sword. When Curry struggles or rests, the team's offense often falls apart. Kerr's decision to change things up during the Nuggets game was not just about finding an immediate solution to their offensive woes. It was also a sign of his growing frustration with the team's performance. After 4 straight losses, Kerr knew something had to change.